Welcome, everybody, to another week of Wealth Wisdom, where we're helping you build wealth and legacy.
Companies are like an organism trying to survive.
It's always a risk when you're investing in a company that's purely tied to someone's brand.
45% of Americans have gone into debt for a Disney trip. All right, welcome back to another episode of Wealth Wisdom. Happy New Year, everybody. We took a little time off with the holidays, but we are back in action, and congratulations to our partner here, Eric. Welcome to the world, Christian.
Thanks,
Hey.
guys.
How you guys doing?
We're good. Say hi, Christian.
Yeah. Taking a little.
Yeah, let's do this. A lot of sleeping, a lot of eating, a lot of diapers.
For
But
those who are just audio only right now, Eric welcomed his son New Year's Eve into the world. Is New Year's Eve or day?
New Year's Eve, yeah.
Officially
Yeah.
New Year's Eve. It's fantastic. So
Not getting that little tax deduction right before the year, the way we're at.
Yeah, that's nice.
Little maximizing the benefit there.
it's amazing. You guys are doing well, though? Everyone's happy. Mom's happy.
Yeah, mom's healthy, baby's healthy. It was, and the hospital was actually amazing. We went to Women and Infants in Rhode Island, and around the holidays and stuff, you're like understaffed, but everyone was amazing. It was really good. This little guy.
That's awesome. You guys pop some champagne.
No, Britt's like still too scared to have a drink at all. We had some like non-alcoholic stuff, but yeah, we need to have some fun.
Proper celebration. That's awesome. Congratulations.
Moving, you get into a point where the baby might be sleeping a little bit, even if it's like another hour or two, just like at a time, like that makes a big difference.
Right.
Rick comes out of that, whatever you want to call it, what do they call it, like the fourth trimester there, where like the baby's outside of the body, but yet still so dependent on her and everything like that.
Oh yeah, it's every few hours. You can't leave. You can't do anything else. You're speeding and changing diapers. That's it.
Yeah.
These are fantastic times, and they fly by. So appreciate them. I know it's hard, but it's people would always tell me that. I'm like, what? But
Yeah.
awesome.
No, I mean, luckily, we haven't gotten annoyed by any of the like mess or anything. If anything, I find it funny. But yeah, no, it's all good. Yeah.
It's awesome. Okay, Bill, you already said like you made a joke about child tax.
Renee, let me drop this kid off. You guys keep going.
I want to like Bill, when you have a new client who's got a new baby, what are the types of things that you're talking to them about? Because when you're single, especially like in Eric's situation, and when he comes back, he can join. But in Eric's situation, he's a new dad, and him and Britt now more of a family with kids. What are the considerations that you both, now that you're back, Eric, tell clients to consider?
Yeah, I think the number one thing, it's a selfless thing, but I think it's at almost actually once you know that you're going to have the baby, right? So this is almost like at conception. I really think people should get life insurance right away. That's probably my number one thing. I know, and there's a reason why when I say at conception, once you find out that that's happened. And the reason is it's unfortunate, right? But there's a lot of things that can happen. If you're the father and you could pass away, right? Prior to the baby not being born. And like I said, it's a very selfless act, but you want to make sure that your partner and your child is taken care of financially in case anything were to happen. You don't think of it, but I actually, a coworker of my wife, actually, who was I considered a friend, he actually passed away, unfortunately, while his wife was pregnant.
Oh my!
Very extremely unexpectedly. So these things can happen. You also hear about sometimes where if the mother passes away during childbirth or something like that. Although very rare, these are things that you want to protect against, especially too when most of the time you're going to get life insurance anyway, right? Like it's on the top of it's on top of my mind. I want to do it. Go ahead and do it right away. And that's something I would say, ideally you do it even prior to the baby being born. I would do it right away once you decide to start a family. But that's probably the number one thing that I would say that a lot of people put off. It's actually a pretty seamless process to at least you can get a term policy, 20 or 30.
I was gonna ask that.
It's made that they've been, it used to be a little more difficult. I feel like with the underwriting process and everything like that, I would go and do it right away. A lot of insurance companies have streamlined that process. Sometimes you don't even need a physical, a physical or anything like that, depending on the amount. But
How do you determine amount?
Ooh. So I do it just a top-down approach. I say, what are the things that you want to have covered? So, college education, for example, is education important to you? You know what I mean? Do you want to make sure housing is and things like that is taken care of for your partner and your child? So I would look at those items. Okay, do you have a mortgage? How much is the mortgage? You know what I mean? What's the remaining on that? Okay, that gives us a number. Do you want college? Do you want it to be public, private? You know what I mean? If you're trying to keep insurance costs down, maybe you say, okay, at least a public, you know what I mean? A public education. What's the cost of that? You know what I mean? Get the present value of that right now. Do that amount, and then coverage of your earnings, right? So what's your earnings? If the household is expecting you to make X amount of dollars, you don't necessarily need to say, okay, this person makes 100,000, 200,000, 500,000, 600,000. You need to have that covered for X amount of years. But if there's a portion of those earnings that are used to help maintain the household, let's take that and let's take a present value of that. So if it's, hey, out of your income, we need $60,000 a year to pay for things, or 40, or whatever that number is that we determine, let's take that out. How many years do we want to have that coverage, right? You know what I mean? And so let's get a net present value of that number. Let's get that in there, and that will help determine whether someone needs 800,000, $1 million, 2 million, 4 million, you know what I mean, worth of coverage, is, and what you want to have covered for your partner. And that's how I would go ahead in determining the amount. The amount is then going to dictate the cost of the insurance. Once you then figure out what the cost is, then you can say, okay, well, what things aren't necessarily as important to cover, right? So that we can bring down that cost of insurance, you know what I mean? Or amount of insurance, right? But that at least give you a starter.
Reverse engineering it, looking into the future. What are the needs of the family and your spouse and
Yeah.
your lifestyle? Reverse engineering. Eric, have you guys, we're talking about life insurance. I know, what's the second, third, fourth thing that you guys are considering, and Bill, you tell your clients?
Yeah, life insurance is probably number one, and I haven't upped it yet. I think I've just got $1 million in a policy, but if you're going to do, which I do want to do, I want to cover our mortgage. I want to cover college education. I don't know, at least like 10 years of living expenses. I'm going to need to up that policy significantly. But then, yeah, other things which is super quick. You can add contingent beneficiaries to all your investment accounts, which we've done that. But we do want to sit down with Kirk, the estate attorney we have at Fox Hill, and go over a will. I don't think we'll set up trust documents just yet, but want to have a will in place. And then as far as, because education and lifestyle are so important to us, we're going to do 2 savings accounts for our kid. One is a UTMA account, which you can move funds in and out freely. You're spending that as long as you're spending that money on the child, and it doesn't have to be used for educational purposes.
Okay.
Up to $1,300 in earnings in that account is tax free. In the 1,300 to 2,600 range in earnings, that's taxed at the child's marginal tax rate. Over 2,600 earnings is taxed at the parent's marginal tax rate. So there are some tax benefits. And then we want to do a 529 account. Any money you stock away in that is going to have to be used for education expenses. There are some rules that allow you to, if you have another child, you can actually roll funds from one 529 to another child's 529. So those are the big things we want to do.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. What you just said, that threw me off. The child's tax marginal rate. Is that what you said?
Yeah, Bill, that rate is, I think it's 10%.
I didn't realize children had a tax rate. Is that?
If they make money, they get taxed. Everyone does, right? So,
Okay.
yeah, for that first portion there that Eric mentioned, there is no tax, right? That if they be hitting for, say, dividends, interest, capital gain, you know what I mean? Things along those lines. And then there's, what he's referring to is a thing called the kiddie tax. There are a lot of people here. So if you have an investment account and it exceeds that amount, that's where you have to start paying. So it's the reason why the government has done it. They don't want people taking assets, putting it in their kid's name, not paying very much tax on it, and then using the funds or something like that. So they have this kiddie tax, and so that if you do hit, you're over that amount, then you have to pay tax at what the parents would be, right? So if it's capital gains, you get taxed at what the parents would be. If the dividends, all the interest earned, things like that, it gets taxed at what, then it's per unearned income. So unearned income. So that's money.
Keep it for money in the UGMA account or UTMA account.
That's yes. So that Uniform Trust of Minors Act, that's what it's referring to. So a taxable brokerage account in the kid's name. That's essentially what a UTMA account is. And that's where you would potentially get hit with that tax there. But if you're in,
Unless you're in a 529 plan.
529 is, it's a post-tax money going in, tax deferred, right? No taxes and essentially tax-free once it's used for tuition, schooling, things along those lines.
Good to know.
And one thing that's nice about the UTMA is that even if a kid does get a scholarship, new rules have been put in place that you can roll over 35,000, I believe, of that into a Roth IRA.
Oh, wow.
So that's a nice thing to then gift to your child who, if you get 35,000 in a Roth IRA, right, let's call it 30 years old, and they have 30 years of compounding growth, that can potentially, double up 4 or 5 times maybe if invested well in a good strategy. And, that's going to go from 35 to 70 to 140 to 2. So it's going to be several $100,000 if invested correctly with the right asset allocation for your child's retirement. And that can be huge because that will be tax-free money coming out. So
that's huge. That's such a gift as a parent to be able to give to your kids. How do you, Eric, you've mentioned like automating things and making sure it's part of the budget, but automating the bank account transfers. How have you guys thought about that? If you don't mind sharing with the audience.
Yeah. Besides our retirement accounts, we actually don't automate it enough.
Okay.
We have regular contributions go to that, but when I set up the UTMA and 529 accounts, I'll do the same thing. On a monthly basis, funds will go out of our joint checking account into those accounts, go from there. But a lot of it's set it and forget it, and it'll make your life so much easier in the future.
Yeah. Bill, how do you, we talk a lot about risk tolerance. And if it seems to me like as you get older to retirement or you're much older in your senior years, like people become more risk adverse, and they want risk off, just generally speaking.
It was able to recover, right?
Yeah. So is it the complete opposite for a newborn baby? Do you want to really pedal to the metal and forget the risk piece?
Time horizon off.
Your time horizon. The ups and downs of the market really shouldn't be a child who isn't looking to spend that money anytime soon. So what do you want to do? What's your main goal is to get the highest rate of return on your investment as possible and not worry about, hey, if we have a 30% downturn in the market, we've already talked about time and time again how timing the market is so incredibly difficult. Over and over again, it is proven that you stand those downturns, right? And stay invested, allow the market to recover, get back to where it was and grow is the best way to do any investments, right? So anytime you're trying to time it, you're typically going to be wrong. And it's not through anything. It's not that you're not a smart person. It's just that the markets are so unbelievably unpredictable in the short term. It's just they don't even necessarily make sense in the short term. So it's like how you're trying to reason with something that is not reasonable. You know what I mean? So,
sure. But for the parents out there listening or grandparents who are going to share this episode with their kids, would you just advise them to say, hey, even a couple, maybe $100? It sounds to me like even if you started putting $50 to $100 in monthly and just set and forget it, with the proper investment strategy, it's going to really help them when it comes to
a lot of these plans have not only can you set and forget the amount you're contributing each month. That's easy. Set that up automatically. You can actually set up how it's going to be invested years down the road. A lot of them have you can set the date when your child's going to be going to school, right? And it'll start off as aggressively invested. And then over the years, it'll slowly change to a much more conservative allocation as they're getting close to college and you're going to need to be withdrawing those funds. That's a nice feature. I know they didn't have that kind of stuff back in 2008 when a bunch of parents were ready to send their kids to college and they're like, oh, your 529 is 40% less than the market value of it. And now we got to take out a loan. So it's
Oh yeah.
it's pretty amazing, those features. So you can automatically set all that stuff up right from the get-go.
Very cool. That's amazing. Speaking, is there anything else that I missed that like people should be considering first time parents?
Financial planning in general. You know,
Okay.
if you're a new parent, you've got a kid, maybe you got another kid on the way. Best thing you can do is talk to an advisor and start figuring out like, oh, how to budget all of this? Where should I be saving funds? How can I reduce my taxable income? Talk to an accountant too, like a Bill. He'll help you make sure you get that child tax credit and all that stuff.
Yeah, just Medicare too, all your employee benefits, anything that can be used pre-tax. You have things such as a pre-tax plan in order to pay for daycare, right? A lot of people are, especially in today's more than ever, right? You got both people working, right? And so that because of that, you're using daycare, right? That's and part of that comes with pretty hefty price tag. So making sure the budget is fitting that, and then taking advantage of anything that your work gives you pre-tax, whether it's the $5,000 pre-tax plan that you can contribute to, things along those lines, just to keep your taxable income down as much as you possibly can, right? So you get as much take home as you can. So,
Got it. That's huge. I didn't even think about that. Pre-tax for daycare. Huge. Yeah.
Yeah, neither did I. So does that have to be offered through an employer?
it
Does it
does.
though? Yeah.
Yep. There's a tax credit that you can use, but a lot of times the pre-tax plan will save you more money overall.
Good.
Right. So
And can that work with something like an au pair, like a nanny or anything like that? Or does it have to be, yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
I remember when we first had our first daughter, and fortunately we had put in a really health plan. Our healthcare plan it was a more expensive option, but the family limit, right, was like $4,000 or something like that on out-of-pocket expenses, like the max out-of-pocket. The cost, I found a glimpse of the invoice of what that would have cost to deliver.
Yeah.
The price tag. So that's my 2 cents. And you guys are true experts here, but making sure you're on a really good health plan before you go deliver in the hospital is what I would add to all of this. I think it was Brigham and Women's, and it was probably like $80,000 for a healthy delivery.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. That hospital bedtime is incredibly expensive. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I wanted to move on to the second half of the show. We want to really talk about the markets going forward this year, 2025. We are 10 days in at the time of this recording, and things are looking good and bad. I think more good and bad. What's interesting, I think for me, just of note, looking back this past year, the S&P is now comprised, I think, 34%. The Mag 7 comprises 34% of the S&P, which is wild. And that is a massive, and I think it went from, it's a great link. We'll link it in the show notes. Visual Capitalist, they put it out. It was only 9% back in 2014. So 10 years ago, it was 9.8% of the market, of the S&P. What are you guys thinking? Is that a scary thing? Like, how do you guys react to that?
Yeah, I think it's a little alarming. I couldn't tell you exactly why though, but yeah, from a competition standpoint, as long as they have competitors and aren't like true monopolies, I'm okay with their growth and their market dominance. What we don't want to have happen is like what happened with Google over, I don't know, the last 10 years, where they were like the leader in AI, but failed to implement like an AI until ChatGPT forced their hand. That's an example of someone who owned 90% of search and refused to introduce a new product because they were worried it would hurt their current product, right? Kodak famously had the digital camera in 1975, held on to it because their business model was making money off of the film reels.
Right.
Then when the digital camera was finally released in 1990, they were obviously late to the game and hurt them dramatically. So as long as there's no true monopolies, I'm okay with the market concentration, though it does definitely scare me. Do with have to do with the fact that so many investors nowadays are passive. They're just buying mutual funds and ETFs. And if you're buying an S&P 500 mutual fund, it has to just invest in those companies at that weight and more piled into the big tech companies.
Further perpetuating it.
Yeah.
It does give investors a false belief where people think, oh, I'm in the S&P 500
Undiversified.
index fund. I'm very diversified. The reality is they're not really mutual funds as they think they are. Where we're using a strategy like ours where we're picking individual securities, that kind of helps making sure people are actually a little more diversified, but it definitely gives, I would say, the common investor, I would say, a false sense of security, right? I talk to people all the time and they think that they're like, oh, if I was in an index, I'm in a much,
Right.
my risk profile is not nearly as much as
Right.
individual stocks. You're buying 15 or 25 stocks for me. It's much less risky. I hear that all the time. And I'm like, it's what the underlying components are, right? You know what I mean? Or what it's made of. That's where the mathematical risk comes in. So it's funny how I would say a common investor thinks that I think there's a false sense of security there that they don't even realize because they're not really below the surface. And that is alarming. If the Mag 7 does have a significant pullback, right? 5, 6, 7 of those stocks, for whatever reason, don't tend to do well. I'm not necessarily thinking they are, but if they do, that would significantly have a pullback, right? And you're not gonna sure Amazon, right? Because a lot of consumer staples, stuff like that, but there's so many other like segments of the market that they don't even touch on, So
Yeah.
Right.
Dude, I bet they could get to 50% weight if they continue on their trajectory they've been on. Is that even worse? What does that mean? That's crazy.
yeah, they're gonna outpace the rest of the, you know what I mean? The rest of the index by that much. It certainly could continue to go up. They're obviously in each of their areas, they're extremely dominating. They have the best product and the most market share.
Yep.
And they continue to build on that.
Yeah, and then I think looking at AI and what it's already happened, I heard, I think it was I forget where it was. It could have been an All In podcast, which I'm big fans of. One of their guests recently was saying, hey, he believes that the growth of AI in the past year will start to compound at a rate where that annual growth will go into every month.
Oh my gosh.
Which is probably going to happen. If you look at ChatGPT and how it's progressed already and Gemini, and the compound rate of innovation there is it's just flying.
Oh yeah, the Mag 7, who has the most money to build out the AI?
Exactly.
Those companies they have so much cash in and so expensive to build it out. So they're light years ahead of everybody else. And they have the ability to you know what I mean, to put it through. It's if you don't have the cash to build out these systems, I mean, you're left behind. And they have money to burn. So they're like, hey, I mean, they've even said the cost, right, of not doing it the cost of doing it, even if we overpay, it's worth it so we don't get left behind, right? Because if we get left behind, that's going to cost us a lot more money in the long term. So like they're so committed to it. They're spending so much money. And a lot of these, if you think about it, a small cap company doesn't have the ability necessarily to do that. For them to go out and raise funds and things along those lines, it's much tougher for them to get the capital. Whereas these companies are like just another line on their balance sheet that they can throw over into it and into research and development, things along those lines.
Yep.
A lot of companies don't have the ability to do what they're even doing. So that could continue to widen.
Yeah, I agree. I think overall, generally speaking, you're going to see the largest companies benefit the most, at least in the short term, from AI, because they have the means to implement it fast. And just a small efficiency tweak and improvement has such a much larger impact on their bottom line than a smaller company.
Yeah, they have the reach, right? They have
Now,
thousands and thousands of employees, thousands and thousands of users on their platforms. So you could scale all those different solutions.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
you look at jobs reports and stuff like that, like we're doing all the time, and how will AI impact it this year, but over the next 6, 7 years, 8 years.
Billy, the clients who I've spoken to recently who are looking for work are in the tech industry. I don't know if that's just anecdotal, like it happens to be the case, but it is interesting that the industry that's rapidly implementing AI solutions across their own internal stuff is where I'm personally seeing people out of work. So it's very interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. It's well, there's a lot of the jobs market. I think there's going to be a redistribution or shuffling of jobs and careers. And I mean, you can right now you can train to be. I think a lot of these colleges are giving away free AI courses. Like you could, I think, like there's a monumental shift happening just from AI, and you can make it a new career if you're willing to learn. So
Yeah, I'm hoping just like anything, though, as a new technology comes along, creates some disruption, causes there's a little bit of a stir in how things are, where people are like, "Oh, this is going to replace," but then it actually ends up allowing people to do more work. You know what I mean? And breeds whole new industries almost in a sense.
I think that's what will happen completely. I think it's overall positive.
Yeah. I think the introverts get
Okay.
hurt though by this. Like the people that
Oh,
aren't interfacing with other humans, those guys that are in there, you know, maybe you're the accountant at a big company and you're just logging stuff all day and that's been your job. That's out there. And if you're not good interpersonally, you're going to struggle. And that's the kind of people that we'll see have issues with AI coming in. But those of us with those soft skills will do very well.
yeah, definitely. I agree with that. Did you guys see the NVIDIA's announcement from the CES conference? With how did you get, yeah?
Yeah. Yeah, we did.
Another huge company, massive. I think did they just overtake Apple in terms of market cap?
What are they at 3 trillion then?
Yeah, I think
I don't know if they're quite there, but yeah, they may have actually with the recent run up.
yeah, massive. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it just happened. NVIDIA overtook Apple as the world's most valuable company as of October 25th. Yes.
Apple's back on top. They're back on top.
Are they back? Or
yeah.
They're flip-flopping. They're going back and forth.
That's crazy. Yeah.
That's crazy. That's massive. So they came out and they're exhibiting the world first supercomputer for everyday people like us, right? Which I think is insane. Pretty cool. Then you have robots coming out. If you think about that, like we might be the last generation where we grew up without a robot in the house. Christian might have a robot. Like you guys might have a robot in your house.
Do some vacuuming, use a dusting.
So what was interesting? So like supercomputers, robots coming, quantum computing, they said was a little further out. Jensen had said he doesn't think it's as.
Yeah, you said like 20 years, right? So he's, I don't think it's quite in 10, but I don't think it's net. I would say 30, but he's like stuff tends to happen a little faster. So that's settle in at 20.
Yeah.
And they're investing already into that space. But then you saw stocks in the quantum computing space drop after that announcement, which was interesting.
I'm sure they weren't happy about that.
Yeah, I mean, a huge run up the last couple of months, so like hundreds of percent. But then they did. Yeah, they dropped. I was seeing 45% drops, 30% drops, 40% drop. You know what I mean? On some of those quantum computing stocks.
Yeah. So yeah, I just thought that was interesting. It's pretty cool. Cool conference happens every year, but it's something I look forward to and see the announcements.
Justin, it looked like I watched the highlight video of that. It looked like best use case scenarios for what they were working on was the NVIDIA Cosmos application, where it builds like a 3D world where you can test your like robots in, or the example they used was like robots in a warehouse. Within this 3D space, they would test different routes for moving around packages and storing things, and it would find the best routes there. So it wouldn't have to waste time actually physically moving around in the real world. And then they were going to use that application also for self-driving cars as well. Yeah, it's going to be amazing. I assume that was
putting this together, looking out over the next 10 years, I only see more efficient production, like for these huge companies. So I think it really helps, with our long-term thesis. Exciting. I don't know. What are your thoughts, Bill?
No, certainly. It's amazing to think about what's going to happen, but it almost it makes me speechless so much thinking about all the possibilities, because we've seen it in movies, we've seen it, things like that. And it's, oh, is that ever going to happen? Right. Will we ever get to a point? And, now it's kind of obviously not at the finish line. We're still, well, the finish line is still, but it's in view. Right. So it's like, all right, this could start happening, and it will be interesting to see the shift of having all these machines do so much more for us. And whether it will be, I know people are always concerned, is it going to take away jobs? Is it going to, but hopefully we'll just allow those people to just, again, do more work, right? You know what I mean? So allow you to do more work, become more efficient. I know sometimes they worry about the menial jobs in terms, or things like that, but maybe those people then can then operate the computers or something like that to then ensure the stuff gets done. And if there's any slip ups or something like that by the machine, they can, you know what I mean? They can come in, get it reprogrammed, fix the issue, you know what I mean? Or something like that. So I feel like that's always going to happen, right? Because even basic software, like computer and stuff like that, the computer software that we use, how often is it, oh, this is what the software is going to do, this is what it do, we go to do it, yeah, there's always a mistake, there's some issue, right? You know what I mean? Something like that, it needs to be fixed. It's not giving us, oh, for sure, best data or the best output of what we're looking for. So I'm sure that's going to happen with this stuff as well. You're going to need someone to be operating it. Maybe there is a time down the road where it fixes itself, but I'm not overly optimistic it's definitely not going to happen the first run through. I'll tell you that much. The only thing I will guarantee.
Even AI right now is not replacing humans. It's definitely augmenting and making you a more productive human, but there's the way it writes, it's just not, it's not there at all. So this is going to take some time.
Yep.
Yep. It's really cool. Anyway, Eric, you probably should get some sleep soon. Hopefully.
Live up all night. What's going on? Not just
No, I thought it was, yeah. So
We got my mom to come stay with us a few days to help us take care of the newborn. And dude, she was like cooking and cleaning and all this stuff. I was like, wow, like maybe we should have more kids if my mom's gonna come over and help like this all the time. So anyways, yeah, Britt didn't like that one, but yeah, that's nice.
it's awesome. Enjoy these times. That's it for this week. Next week, more to come. Stay tuned, everybody. Like, follow, share, and we'll see you next.
Subscribe, whatever. Yeah. See ya.